Okay. So I'll read verse 6 again, and then we'll continue from there. Okay, so from now on, I will distance myself from this demon, self-grasping, that makes me wander helplessly, and its emissary, self-centeredness, that seeks only selfish happiness and prosperity. I will joyfully embrace hardship for the sake of others. Okay, so we wander helplessly, taking birth in one body after another in cyclic existence with no end in sight. Why is there no end in sight? Because we haven't stopped the principal cause of rebirth in samsara, which is that ignorance grasping at inherent existence. The demon behind this sad story is the self-grasping ignorance that grasps the inherent existence of ourselves and all other phenomena. It is the root of samsara that gives rise to all the afflictions, and its eradication is the key to attaining liberation. So that specifically identifies what the root of samsara is, so that we can go after it. Okay. We do have to verify for ourselves how the self-grasping works to give rise to the other afflictions, and how those then give rise to the polluted karma. So it's something that we hear in teachings, but we really have to think about ourselves and apply to our own life and get some feeling for how this actually occurs. Yeah. So that we have that confidence that the main problem is the self-grasping. So self-grasping is in cahoots with self-centeredness. They are companions in evil. Self-grasping ignorance resembles a dictator who decrees that I and everything else inherently exists as objective entities. Okay? And self-centeredness is the emissary that executes this vicious dictator's decrees by unrelentingly insisting that our own happiness and suffering are more important than anybody else's. Does this kind of explain your life? Yeah? Is it ringing some bells? Okay. Following the self-centered thought narrows our perspective on life. Instead of seeing others as living beings with feelings, we focus on how they can benefit us. Yeah, so we become very transactional. You know, how can somebody benefit me? And I will, mosey up to them so that I get the benefit I want out of them. It's not very nice to look at, but this is what our self-centeredness does to us. Yeah, it makes us really blind to the kindness of others. And so we lack appreciation, we lack gratitude. And instead we feel like we're deprived and others aren't giving us enough. Okay, instead of seeing living beings, others as living beings with feelings, we focus on how they can benefit us. Rather than approach situations with openness, curiosity, and sharing, we think, what can I get out of this? Okay. And, when we think we can't get anything out of it, then we become impatient and we want to go. Yeah. Okay, so ignoring the other 7 billion human beings on the planet, as well as the zillions of animals, insects, and fish, self-centeredness demands that its own concerns and needs be fulfilled before anyone else's, even at the cost of others' happiness. Sounds bad, doesn't it? Yeah, but we're nice people. Yeah, we're nice people. And that sounds really nasty. Well, is it true or not true? Yeah, maybe there's a kind of nasty side to us after all that we need to look at and do something with. Like I said, we're all among friends, so we don't need to be afraid of admitting this stuff. Yeah, because everybody knows that we have it anyway. So trying to pretend, that we're not self-centered and we're totally 100% magnanimous, good luck. Yeah, we can pretend that, but how many people will believe it, when we don't even believe it ourselves? So examining our experience, we see that the more self-centered we are, the more miserable we become. Yeah. And this is important to see, because then when we see it, we realize, wait a minute, the self-centeredness is deceiving me. Because self-centeredness says, it's whispering in my ear, you're the most important one. Take care of yourself before others. Don't let others manipulate you. Get whatever you can from them. So self-centeredness is whispering that in our ear, and we follow it thinking that it's going to bring happiness. But what's the result when we act in very self-centered ways and just take care of ourselves and ignore the effect of our actions on others? Yeah. Do we have good relationships with others after that? Do we have a good feeling about ourselves? Like after we've gotten really mad and we've really told somebody off? Yeah. Do we say, well done, you got that person, you shot them down, good for you? Yeah. Or do you feel kind of like, well, maybe I shot them down, but what I did was really not so good? Yeah. Okay. So sometimes I think, we have to really look inside by ourselves, not depend on what other people tell us we are, or whether our actions are good or bad. And if we feel uncomfortable about having done something, to own that to ourselves and see if our self-centeredness was involved in making us behave in that way. Because self-centeredness interprets everything as revolving around ourselves, we become extremely sensitive to small actions others do, believing that they indicate that what others think about us. Okay, so we go in a room and two people are talking quietly, and we think they're talking behind my back. They could be talking about who knows what. There's lots of things, but we go in, and because we interpret everything in reference to ourselves, the mind goes, oh, they're talking behind my back. Or somebody says something publicly, and we say, oh, they're criticizing me. Everything gets interpreted regarding ourselves. And so we become very, very sensitive. People make really innocuous remarks, and we go, oh, why are they saying that about me? Yeah. If you don't believe that happens, flip the situation. Have you ever said anything to somebody that was completely innocuous, and that other person turned around and accused you of criticizing them or blaming them for something they didn't do, or completely misinterpreting what you said? Has that ever happened to you? Okay, so we don't think that somehow, that happens with us when people say things to us, that we misinterpret what they're saying and become very, very super sensitive. Yeah. So one story really illustrates this to me. One of my friends was pregnant many years ago, and when you're pregnant, you put weight on. Okay, and she was going to go to another state to visit her sister, and she said to me, "I know when I get off that plane, my sister's going to look at me and say, you've put some weight on, haven't you?" And she was, in telling me this story, she was already mad at her sister for saying that. She hadn't even flown there, hadn't seen her sister. Her sister hadn't said that, but she was so sure her sister would that she was already mad and super sensitive about her sister's criticism. Okay? So that is, to me, an excellent example of what our minds do. How we just jump over many, many steps and misinterpret what people say because we think it's all about me. Yeah? And then we wind up in these difficult situations where we say to somebody, "Why did you talk to me that way? Are you trying to tell me blah, 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 blah? Why don't you just say it frankly instead of saying it like that in a nasty voice?" And the other person's looking at us like, "What in the world are you talking about?" And we go, "What you said, 4 years ago." And we're still mad at it because we're sure that they were attacking us personally. Yeah. Do you have any of those things in the storage files in your mind? Yeah. Of nasty things people have said to you that you're storing safely so the next time you have a big fight with them, you can bring them out as evidence about how insensitive the other person is? Yeah. It's funny what our mind does. Okay, so we are easily hurt and offended. We become preoccupied with our appearance. Yeah. How do I look? My hair okay? Yeah. Is it okay? Did I shave it evenly, or is there one part that's still too long? Oh, what are you going to think of me if I didn't shave my head properly? Yeah. How do I look in these robes? Yeah. Can you still see how attractive I am? Well, no. That's the point of wearing them. Oh, but, I want to look good in my robes. Huh? And if other people say, "Oh, she dresses very nicely." Yeah? So we become sensitive about all this stuff. Okay? Yeah. About our wealth. Do people know, that we're employed and we have a good income and da 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 da, and we're very generous and give it to charities? We're concerned with our reputation. Yeah. And so because we're so preoccupied with these things, there is little space to consider others' feelings and needs. Because everything is about me. We treat others inconsiderately and then are angry when they avoid us. Yeah, that makes total sense, right? Yeah, we treat others like just objects to get around. We don't care about their feelings. And then when they ignore us and don't praise us and think we're wonderful, we get mad at them. Well, it's no doubt they don't have a good feeling about us because of the way we act. Okay, so this is getting into a topic that Shantideva talks about quite a bit in Guide to Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So it's in chapter 8. Yeah, we're still going through chapter 7 on Thursday mornings. But Shantideva really goes into it. He doesn't hold anything back in making us see the faults of our self-centeredness. Because only when we see the faults of it and how it makes us suffer, only then will we begin to doubt if the self-centeredness is really our friend like it pretends to be, or if it is, the demon's accomplice who is making us miserable. Okay. So we're advised to do this reflection repeatedly so we can clearly see the effect of self-centeredness on our life. When we do this, it's very important to remember that we are not our self-centeredness. If we think that we are union oneness with our self-centeredness, then as we go through the disadvantages of self-centeredness, we turn that against ourselves and say, I'm so selfish, I'm so ego-sensitive, I'm so this, I'm so that. And again, fall into that thing of self-criticism. So we have to see that the self-centeredness is not part of who we are, okay? It's not the nature of our mind. It's, again, something added on that can be taken away because it's based on an illogical argument, that among countless sentient beings, I am the most important. That's a little bit untenable, isn't it? As a justification for our self-centeredness. How can we hold on to that? Yeah. And so because self-centeredness is based on something that's so ridiculous, by remembering its disadvantages and how illogical it is, then we can reduce the self-centeredness and eventually, let it go completely. But it takes some work and some real remembering how much the self-centeredness has harmed us. Yeah. So in this way, it's also very helpful too, at least I find it helpful, if I think about things in my life, situations that haven't gone so well, or situations where I don't feel good about how I acted or what I said to somebody. And if I look at those situations that ask myself, why did I say that? Why did I do that? When I dig deep enough, it's always because of self-centeredness. I'm looking out for myself and what benefits me. And then it becomes clear why I don't feel good about that, why I need to do some purification. So we use it to energize ourselves to let go and release the self-centeredness. We don't use the awareness of its disadvantages to beat ourselves up and tell ourselves how horrible we are. Okay, and I say this because a friend once told me that she, was been doing this meditation on the disadvantages of selfishness and or self-centeredness, and just was really beginning to hate herself and think, what a horrible person she was. And she went to ask one Tibetan Lama if she had reached the right conclusion from doing this meditation. And the Lama didn't know English, she didn't know Tibetan, so it went through a translator. But he said, yes, that's the right conclusion. And she came to me, really confused and unhappy, and said, how could, is it really that telling myself how awful I am is really the remedy to self-centeredness? And that's the right way to do this meditation? And I said, no, yeah, it's not. I think, he misunderstood the question. Or he didn't realize how much Westerners easily go into self-hatred. Yeah, because in Tibetan culture, that doesn't happen like this. Like we do it. Yeah, but if you look, all this self-blame is just another form of self-centeredness. Yeah. Why? Because when we're stuck and I'm so bad, I'm so awful, I'm so selfish, I'm a failure, I can't do anything right, nobody loves me. Who's the star of the show? Who are we thinking about? Who do we care about the most when we're blaming ourselves? Yeah. So it's just another way to say, I am more important than others. I am more significant than others. And if I can't be the best, well, I am the worst, and I am the worst among the worst in the world. And therefore, all my self-hatred is justified. And if you believe in me, you're an idiot. Huh? So, we have to look at these kinds of thoughts and be very honest with them. And do these thoughts, are they true? Do they make sense? Or are they just, garbage? And I think, I don't know about you, but I found that a lot of what I think, especially self-referentially, is garbage. Yeah? And when you start to give it up, then you have so much more time. Yeah? Because you're not sitting there going all around me. So examining our experience, we see that the more self-centered we are, the more miserable we become. Because self-centeredness interprets everything as revolving around us. I read this already, didn't I? Okay. It doesn't hurt to read it again. I'll skip the middle and get to the end, don't want to hit you too much. We treat others inconsiderately and then are angry when they avoid us. We try to control others in an attempt to make them do what we want. In the process, we make enemies and create a lot of destructive karma. Okay? So, how many of you are control freaks? Yeah? We know what's better for other people, don't we? Yeah, we look at their lives and no wonder their life is such a mess. Yeah, they should do this and this and this and this and this and this, and I tell them what to do, and I give them my excellent advice, and they don't follow it. Yeah, and I have such a kind heart. I'm only trying to help them out of my compassion, by giving them this advice about how to run their lives. And they don't want to hear it. wow, no wonder the world is such a mess. Yeah? I mean, I have a little bit of advice right now for Putin. Yeah? Some advice for the governor of Texas. Yeah? Some advice for the gunmen of the last two mass shootings. Some advice for Uncle Mitch. Yeah. Don't you think Uncle Mitch could use some good advice? Yeah. And what's the other one? McCormick. What? McCarthy. What's his first name? Kevin, that's right. Yeah, so he could use some help too. Don't we all have some advice for him too? Yeah. Yeah. And Uncle Ted. Really, Uncle Ted, what a gem he is. Yeah, but he could use a little counseling too. But I write letters to these people, and then their answers say the opposite of what I've suggested they do. Huh. But I'm not trying to control them, And the people in my life, they have certain illnesses. I know how they should treat their illnesses. They have relationship problems. I know how they can deal with their relationship problems. Yeah. They have trouble finding work. I know how to help them get a job and do a good CV. Yeah, but they just don't listen. Yeah. And then they tell me to mind my own business. The nerve. So you see, I try so hard and nobody appreciates me. My whole life, it's been like this. You want to hear my whole life story? What? What are you saying? No. No, you're supposed to say yes. Yeah. And then this, and then that, and then the other thing. Okay? This is how the self-centered mind works. Yeah. But I don't want to hear your whole life story. Yeah. Because it probably sounds too much like mine. Yeah. No, the real reason I don't want to hear your life story is because you're one of those yes, but people. Okay, do you know yes, but people? They come and they tell you their life story. They tell you your problems, just what you want, because you want to be able to give them advice and control them. So they're asking you for help. So now I can go in and, say something, get them to do what I want them to do. Yeah. So they tell you their whole blah, 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 blah. And you're listening to it. And then at the end, they say, what do I do? So you give some sageous advice, really perfect, how to solve their problem. And then they say, yes, but, and tell you why they can't follow your advice. Don't you love it? Yeah. So, I don't want to hear anybody's life story because they ask me for help and then they don't follow it and instead they say, yes, but, God. Do you have that problem in your life too? Yeah. People say, yes, but. But we never say that to other people who are trying to help us. Because anyway, we don't give them a chance to tell us what to do. We cut them off at the pass. Like, don't be so bossy. So we try to control others in an attempt to make them do what we want. In the process, we make enemies and create a lot of destructive karma and are so confused why people don't like us. Mm-hmm. Giving up self-preoccupation does not entail making ourselves suffer. Okay, so the remedy is not to make ourselves suffer and tell ourselves how lousy we are. We must take care of ourselves, but in a proper way, not in a self-indulgent way. This human body is the basis of our precious human life that gives us the possibility to learn and practice the Dharma. We need to keep our body clean and healthy and make sure we exercise and sleep enough and eat nutritious food to stay healthy. Right? Yeah, so we have, a few nutritious things between all the crackers and cookies and chips and so on. Okay. We do this, take care of ourselves, with the motivation to practice the Dharma and gain realizations so that we can benefit others. This way of taking care of our physical needs is not self-centered. Okay, so, we need food, clothing, medicine, shelter, looking after ourselves to have those, that's fine. The problem comes in when it's like, I want this shelter, I want this room, not another room, I want this room, because with this bed, not another bed, this bed, and a dresser and a table that is this high, and I want a room with enough sunlight that's not near a road, that's not above where the turkeys do all their noisy stuff. So that's when the problem comes, okay? When we get really self-focused, Yes, I need food, but I want, and then we give everybody, a list of what we want. Mm-hmm. And I don't eat, and we give them a list of what we don't eat. And then, where's the food I like? I told you the food I like. Why are you serving the food that I don't like? I know there's other people at this retreat beside me, but it's on the board what I like and what I don't like. Okay, so you see where it goes from just taking care of ourselves in a reasonable way to attachment, and then from attachment we get to anger. Okay. In opposing self-grasping and self-centeredness, we may encounter difficulties. Problems arise naturally in cyclic existence, and when we start to practice Dharma, we shouldn't expect this to change instantly. Why not? Why can't I expect my life to change instantly when I start to practice the Dharma?
We have a deep reservoir of goodies.
Yeah, but they told me this was the quick path and that I can become enlightened in one life. This was on the flyer that they sent out. That if I attend this ceremony, I can get enlightened in this life. And even some of the sutras, they say you recite this mantra 10 times, and then, yeah, you're almost enlightenment. And another mantra, you recite it once and you'll never have a bad rebirth ever again. Yeah, it says that in the scriptures. So, yeah, I have accurate expectations. Yeah. So I should, if I start practicing Dharma on Friday, I should be enlightened by Tuesday. Yeah, it's the fast path. Okay. And then a reality strikes. And we realize that we have a whole lot of wrong expectations. Mm-hmm. So sometimes our previously created destructive karma will ripen as health problems, relationship difficulties, financial problems, and so on. Okay? But now, as we change from being so self-centered, now we respond to problems differently because we want to benefit others. Okay? So rather than get angry at others or feel sorry for ourselves when we face problems, Dhammarakshita advises us to joyfully embrace hardship for the sake of others. Okay. Rather than get angry or feel sorry for ourselves when we face problems. But that's what everybody does when they face problems. They feel sorry for themselves or they get angry. So why is Dhammarakshita telling me to do what nobody I know does? Yeah. Things like joyfully embrace hardship for the sake of others. Yeah. My mother didn't teach me to do that. My father didn't teach me to do that. Why is Dhammarakshita telling me that? This is nutty. Okay. Well, one secret is that the Dharma remedy for whatever affliction we have is the opposite of what we want to do. It's the opposite of how that affliction thinks. So it's going to make us go like this, like, huh? Like the antidote to jealousy is rejoicing at the other person's good fortune and good qualities. That is the opposite of what you want to do when you're jealous, isn't it? Yeah, when I'm jealous, they have opportunities and qualities that I should have. Yeah, so I should have those things, not them. And you're telling me to rejoice that they have those good qualities and those opportunities when I want them? Well, yeah, that's the antidote to jealousy. Okay? So you see, if we really want to practice the Dharma, we have to be prepared to be flexible and look at things from a very different perspective from how we're used to doing it. Yeah, and we have to be willing to stretch our mind that way and see if there's some value in practicing this other way. Okay? So, Dhammarakshita advises us to joyfully embrace hardship for the sake of others. In this way, we transform the situation so it becomes an aid to help us cultivate love, compassion, and inner strength. Okay? In other words, while we do not go looking for hardship, we don't go looking for suffering, we don't make ourselves suffer. Okay, but if hardship or suffering comes our way, in the process of helping others or in the process of us doing our Dharma practice, we accept it. We don't throw a temper tantrum and say, it's not fair. I have this hindrance. It's not fair. We say, yeah, I have a health problem or financial problems or whatever it is right now. And why do I have these? Because I created the cause to have them. Yeah. It's the wheel of sharp weapons returning. Yeah. I did actions that were damaging to others. Now I experience a painful result. Okay. So this is the idea expressed in, in a crass way by you made your bed, so lie in it. But also, in Christianity, or I don't know if it's which Bible it's in, Old or New Testament. Anybody know? Anybody? Anyway, where it says you reap what you sow. Yeah, what we give, or in New Age, it's what goes around comes around. Okay. In other words, we are acting in a certain way, putting certain energy out there, and it's coming back to us in the form of hindrances in our Dharma practice or difficult situations, whatever. Okay? So we accept it. Yeah. Again, that doesn't mean we feel sorry for ourselves because we have that problem. And it doesn't mean that we become martyrs. Oh, I got COVID. I'm experiencing the result of my negative karma. So I'm going to do this for the benefit of all sentient beings. Do you realize that I'm suffering for your benefit? No, we don't do the martyr trip, okay? But rather, we accept whatever it is, and we learn to deal with it according to the Dharma. Yeah. Experiencing hardship can teach us a lot. Yeah. We discover internal resources we didn't know that we had. And we develop good qualities we may not have developed otherwise. Our empathy and understanding of others' situations increase, stifling our arrogance and helping us to connect with others better. So hardship can make us more sensitive to others' feelings and needs, and it can increase our compassion and open our mind, and really help us find internal resources that we had no idea that we had, or to develop qualities that we didn't have before. Yeah. So if we tell ourselves this is hardship, yeah, then we respond in one way. If we tell ourselves this is an opportunity to grow, we respond in another way. The situation is the same. Okay? We can either see it as an opportunity to grow, or we can see it as a hardship when we have problems. In our beginningless samsaric existences, we have experienced many hardships. We have been born in unfortunate realms countless times and have been separated from our loved ones and possessions countless times. We have been under the control of repressive regimes. They say we've had everything in samsara happen to us. We've been humiliated, although we have done nothing wrong. But by experiencing these hardships in the past, our mind remains self-centered. I don't like this. It isn't fair. The world should be different. Get rid of these horrible people who abuse me. That's how we usually respond. Okay. But this way of thinking increases our present suffering and plants more seeds for suffering in future lives. Okay? Because we get angry and then we say all sorts of, mean things to other people. Mm-hmm. However, undergoing hardship with the motivation to attain spiritual realizations is worthwhile, and despite external difficulties, our mind will remain content. Having a noble, long-term goal to gain the wisdom, compassion, and skill needed to best benefit others enables us to put the present difficulties in perspective and to adopt a Dharma approach to them. For example, if we have to make a long and uncomfortable journey to learn the Dharma, or if we endure pain while sitting in meditation, we bear these kinds of things for the purpose of attaining full awakening for the benefit of beings. In this way, we learn to transform adversity into the path and counteract the self-grasping and self-centered thought that are the chief causes of our own suffering. Okay, this is very, very powerful, where we transform adversity into the path. Because we change our motivation. My knees hurt, my back hurts sitting here, but I'm doing it for a good reason. And I've spent countless lives with aching back and aching knees for no good purpose at all. So here, now at least, is for some good purpose. So some Tibetans who were imprisoned and tortured after the communist takeover of Tibet used their hardship to cultivate compassion and the determination to be free of cyclic existence. In this way, they maintained a peaceful mind and transformed their suffering into the path to awakening. So one of my teachers was a young monk, like late teens, early 20s. Let me think. Early 20s, when he had to flee when there was the abortive uprising in Lhasa in 1959. So he told us the story. He was at Sera Monastery, that when the uprising began, the monks took their bowls, because if you're a Tibetan monk, your most valuable possession is your tea bowl, right? You don't go anywhere without your tea bowl. So they took their tea bowls, went into the mountains behind Sera, thought that they would stay a few days and then come back and everything would be okay. Well, that's not how it turned out. Because there was the abortive uprising, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama crossed the mountains and went into exile in India. So my teacher and tens of thousands of other Tibetans followed, and made that journey over the Himalayas in March when there's snow. And, my teacher wound up in Buxa, which was the old British POW camp. If you watch 7 Years in Tibet, in that movie, that's where Heinrich Herr was before he escaped. And that's where they sent all the Tibetan monks who were refugees to that old British POW camp when they crossed into India. So they had all sorts of difficulties, health difficulties, because in Tibet, high altitude, not so many bacteria and viruses. India, lots of bacteria and viruses. viruses. So many of them got quite ill. They had to leave everything behind, no resources to make another life. So it was really quite difficult, and but they continued their studies in the POW camp. And, eventually, my teacher wound up starting a monastery and taking disciples and so on. But came to have at least it was difficult in the early days of the monastery, but, eventually came to the living conditions improved. But he was telling us that if Mao Zedong had not caused this whole tumult in Tibet, that he would have just stayed in the monastery, gotten his geshe degree, probably gone back to his own village and become the abbot of the monastery there. And if you're the abbot of a village monastery, everybody comes to you and makes offerings and brings things to you and has high regard for you. And he said, I would have sat there and, just done the pujas that people want and collect offerings and be respected. And he said, I never would have really understood the purpose of the Dharma, what it really means to practice the Dharma. And then he put his palms together like this, and he said, but I have to thank Mao Zedong for helping me understand what Dharma practice really was. Can you imagine that? You're a refugee, and you're thanking Mao Zedong, who was the cause of the whole thing? Yeah. And, he was sincerely grateful for the hardship that he went through, because he said that really taught him, what the Dharma was all about. Okay? So you can see how our mind creates our experience by how we look at a situation. Yeah? If we look at it through the eyes of self-grasping and self-centeredness, everything becomes difficult. If we look at it through the eyes of, this is an opportunity to grow, or this is an adventure, then things are not quite so difficult. And in fact, you find a lot of benefit, and you can find a lot of joy in the situation. And you grow a lot. So we've all had difficulties in our lives of various types. If we can learn to look back at those difficulties and instead of feeling sorry for ourselves, say, yes, they were difficulties, but I grew. I learned something important from going through them. Yeah, I purified some karma in the process of going through that. Yeah. So if we can learn to look at things in that way, then our whole experience changes. Yeah. But we have to break the habit of self-pity, of blaming others, of thinking we're the only one who has difficulties. So verse 7, propelled by karma and habituated to afflictions, the sufferings of all beings who share this nature, I will heap them upon the self that yearns for happiness. Okay, so here we're starting to get into what is called the Tonglen, or taking and giving meditation. Okay, where we imagine, out of compassion, taking the suffering of others upon ourselves, being willing to experience it ourselves, and to give our body possessions and virtue to others so that they can have happiness. So this is a meditation that we do, yeah. And it's in some circles it's very popular, and people hear about it. And I was asked not long ago to give a talk at a class at Smith College, and the professor asked me to teach this meditation. The kids in the class were not Buddhist. They didn't have any Buddhist background, and I didn't feel comfortable teaching this to them, because you really need, before doing this meditation, to really feel that our self-centeredness is our enemy. Yeah. And our self-grasping is something to be overcome. If we don't have that background, then the compassion, quote, quote, compassion, we generate before taking others' suffering, and the love, in quotes, that we generate before giving them our body, possessions, and virtue, our merit, if we don't have those previous understandings, then the Tonglen just becomes some kind of feel-good meditation that doesn't really affect us, okay? And we'll get into, this book talks a lot about this meditation, but this meditation is designed to clobber, and I mean clobber, our self-centeredness and our self-grasping. Yeah. So if instead I'm breathing in others' suffering, I'm breathing out my happiness, giving to them. I'm breathing in their suffering. I'm breathing out, giving my body, possessions, and so on to them. And you feel very peaceful. Oh, what a compassionate person I am. I'm taking on their suffering and giving them my happiness. Yeah. I don't think that's really the purpose of this meditation. Yeah, it's not. I think the purpose of this meditation is when you generate compassion and then you think, okay, I'm going to take on others' suffering. Yeah, because I feel compassion. And because of my compassion, I'm willing to take on their suffering. And when you start to take on their suffering, part of your mind goes, no way! I have enough problems. I'm not taking on anybody's suffering. Okay. I think, yeah. Why does that come up in the middle of doing this meditation? Because you're really generating compassion, and the self-centered mind is fighting back. Okay? If you think, oh, all the people who have cancer, I'm going to take on all their cancer, and oh, I just feel so good. I've alleviated all their pain from cancer. Do you really feel that way? Yeah? If you really feel that way, fantastic. Then the meditation is really working well for you. But I don't know about you, but when I'm honest with myself and I say, oh, I'm going to take on the suffering of all people with cancer, one part of my mind goes, uh-uh. Yeah. I have enough suffering, enough problems already. Yeah. I don't want to take on anybody else's. And at that moment, that's when I see the enemy of the self-centeredness most clearly. Yeah? That's when it really becomes clear how my internal values and what I want to become, and my habituated self-centered mind and how stuck it is, the difference between those two things becomes very clear. Yeah? And so am I going to live according to my values and aspirations? In which case I have to really fight this self-centered mind. Or am I just doing something to feel good? Yeah. So this is my interpretation. What do you think?
In some scriptures, it emphasizes that at the end, you dump all the sufferings that you take on from others on self-centeredness.
Yeah.
So that's how it kind of goes in the direction, intended direction.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if we let loose part of the self-centeredness, saying no, and then kind of stay there, then we are halfway taking the suffering, but we are kind of stuck in between. And so the dumping part of it seems to make people kind of comfortable also. Mm-hmm. At the same time, if they do it intently, then it's a self-centeredness that gets dumped over with these sufferings like that. So that's how I try to emphasize it in my practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I only described the first step of the meditation. But what you do usually when you imagine taking on the suffering, and then remember this morning I said the self-centeredness is not part of us. We put it outside here. Here's the enemy of the self-centeredness. So when you breathe, you imagine taking on others' suffering. You don't sit there yourself with it. You give it to the self-centeredness and you make the self-centeredness suffer. Okay? So that's a very important part of the meditation, because as he explained, if we don't do that, then we're taking on others' suffering and we're just feeling like overwhelmed. Yeah. But what I was talking about was how I generate compassion, but my compassion is not really serious. Yeah. I'm not really wanting to take on others' suffering. I have the appearance of being compassionate. Okay, but my compassion is really phony baloney. Okay, because I don't really want their suffering. Even if I give it to the self-centeredness, I don't want to have to take it first before I give it. I don't want anything to do with others' suffering. Okay, so I can see that very clearly, and it becomes obvious that that's something I really need to work on. Okay, so it puts me back on the cushion to, look at my own fear. We talked about fear, was it yesterday? I don't know, I give so many talks. I don't know who I said what to anymore. So, but we see our own fear and how our fear is rooted in self-centeredness. Mm-hmm. So then, can I be brave, and really sincerely, out of compassion, take on others' suffering? And then, of course, give it to the self-centeredness. But if this is in real life, I might still wind up with a difficult situation. And then, after we take the self-centered, after we take others' suffering, we imagine giving it to the self-centeredness. Okay, so then we just have a totally open heart. The self-centeredness is not there anymore, running the show. The self-grasping isn't there. And then we meditate on love, and we imagine our body transforming into what others need and giving that to them. Yeah, our possessions transforming and giving it to others, and our merit transforming that and giving that to others. Yeah. But again, yeah, personally speaking, when I think abstractly, in this abstract way, oh yes, I can take the suffering of others on, because it's amorphous, sentient beings, amorphous suffering, and I imagine myself as this great bodhisattva able to endure it. But the moment I think of actually doing it, I chicken out. Okay? The same way when I think of love, oh yes, I'm willing to give my body for the benefit of others. But don't ask me for a kidney. I don't want to give you my kidney. I want to keep 2 kidneys. I'm going to sacrifice my body for others. We say, but do we really mean it? Are we really willing to do that? Okay. So I find that challenging me. It puts me in the spot because I want to go in one direction, and my self-centeredness is like this chain that holds me down. So, if you're going to be free, you have to get out of that chain. You can't just ignore it. Or I think of giving my possessions away. Yeah, especially you go to Dharma class and they're teaching about the benefits of generosity, and you think, yes, generosity is wonderful. I feel so good. I'm going to give this away and this away. I can't wait to get home and I can go through all these things and give so much away, and I can make large donations here and big donations there. And it's just wonderful to be so generous. Yeah, and you feel so good about yourself, because you're imagining being so generous. And then you think of one possession you have that reminds you of something very sentimental. Was your something that belonged to your mother, or something that belonged to your best friend, or, an invitation to something you never expected to be invited to. And then you think, I'm going to give this away. And your mind goes, oh, yeah? Yeah. We did that one time at the Abbey. We did a thing where everybody had to bring some object that they were very attached to. Yeah, bring the object they were very attached to. We would put it in the middle and then, distribute our precious attached objects of attachment to other people. Yeah, it was really interesting, wasn't it? Yeah? Okay, you have a mic in front of you. Tell the story.
Someone had given to me as a gift for some nice thing I did. I don't remember what it was, not very special really. But what they had given me was very special. It was 7 ruby glass, they were probably cognac glasses actually, but they were for my water bowls. And they were, well, now there's, I don't know how many, but they were beautiful. The light coming through them, and I could, because they were so beautiful, that making this offering every day was like, I felt really holy, making this really beautiful offering. And I knew that this was what I was most attached to. I think I even knew the outcome of the exercise, but anyway, I brought them, fool that I was. And so to let them go, I think to let them go, I was also trying to be holy, that I was really, but I watched where they went for years. and whether those bowls were being used or not for years. And anyway, it took a long time to really let go my attachment to my beautiful, beautiful ruby red offering bowls. Yeah.
And wasn't it where I saw you going to the auction when that was on display?
And I brought one of my favorite pictures of His Holiness. Yeah. And somebody took it, but I think I know where it is. Yeah. Yeah. And nobody else would understand why this particular picture of His Holiness was special to me. But, it's really good. You do this, and then you watch how your mind reacts. Uh-huh. You were there, too. What did you give away?
But it was interesting experience because they were all put on a table and people were lined up down the hall in Ananda, and one by one they came out and they perused all the objects on the table. So on one part of me cringed at somebody picking my thing, and then when they would look over mine and take somebody else's, I'd be like, that's special. How come you looked over my thing, took her thing? So there's this mixed bag, and then it was like, shoo, they didn't take it. Shoo, they didn't take it. And, they don't like it as much as I liked it. So there's this mixed bag going on with that.
Yeah.
I think it was a pair of pruners or something.
It's like when you have a yard sale and you put out these, like old trashy stuff, but it means so much to you in your life. It's the T-shirt you had when you did high jumping in high school or, whatever it was. And it's out there and you want like $50 for it because it's really important, and somebody comes and it's like, this is an old dirty T-shirt. You think I'm going to pay $50 for this? And then you go, oh, people just don't appreciate my things. Yeah, so strange. Yeah. And then we say, well, why should they appreciate my things? It's not their things. Yeah. But then they overlook it, and then you go, oh, good, nobody's going to buy it, then I get to keep it. Yeah. Okay. So propelled by karma and habituated to afflictions, the sufferings of all beings who share this same nature, I will heap those sufferings upon the self that yearns for happiness, upon the self-centered mind. Here's another story. When I lived in Singapore, there was one man who came to see me. He wanted to learn to meditate. And so I was teaching him meditation. And, part of our meditation, we have the motivation at the beginning, and then we dedicate the merit at the end. And this man had been brought up Buddhist. He had a lot of respect for karma and for the idea of creating merit, and that the creation of merit brings happiness. So at the end of one meditation session, I said, now we're going to dedicate the merit and imagine giving it to all the sentient beings so that it will ripen in their welfare. And he looked at me and he said, but I have so little merit, I can't give it away. Yeah. And he really felt it. He didn't want to give his merit away. And so I explained to him, merit is not a fixed pie. It's not if you dedicate it and you give it away, then you have less. When you rejoice in your merit and you want to share the merit and the good outcomes of it with others, then your merit actually increases. Yeah. So after that, then he could accept the idea of dedicating merit. But at the beginning, he really sincerely was afraid of giving it away, that he wouldn't have it then. Yeah. But then most of us, do we really believe in merit to start with, so that we would treasure our merit? Yeah. Or to us, does merit, good karma, just seem like, I don't know, like they're trying to bribe us to being good? Yeah. Do we really believe in karma? Do we believe that virtuous actions lead to happiness? So it helps us to look at those things and ask ourselves what we really believe. And if we believe in the functioning of cause and effect, and we have the right conception, then dedicating the merit is no problem, because we realize that it actually multiplies when we rejoice and dedicate it. Okay? Whereas if we think, that's my merit, I'm not going to give it to anybody else. Yeah. Because some Buddhist traditions, instead of translating the word as dedicate the merit, they translate it as transfer the merit, as if you have some good karma in a bank account and you're going to transfer it to somebody else's karmic bank account, in which case they will have the good result and you're out of luck. Okay, so people have that idea. Yeah, so I think transfer is not a very good translation for that word. It really leads to the wrong idea. It's really, you dedicate it for that purpose. You steer it in that direction. Okay, but karma is not like some invisible bank account, that you deposit in, and gee, will you transfer your merit to me? No, it's not like that.
I should add to the credit of the person who received the bowls that she really did try to give them back, because I was making such a stink, I think, that she felt very kind about it and tried to give them away. So I want to give her credit for that.
Okay. So who has the bowls now?
I'm not going to tell you.
Okay, now we know who has them. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Oh, Venerable Samton has them. Okay.
I have found some little bit of success with taking a giving when I'm suffering and I think about everybody who has the same problem, like and everybody who's got not great lungs, or somebody who had some part replaced, or I got hurt, or I'm under some sort of mental anguish. If I can resonate with everybody who's got that, I can pull that in and take that a lot more easily than something that isn't related to me. So
Yeah.
that does seem to help.
Yeah. Yeah. I find that too, that when I face difficulty or when I'm in pain, if I think of everybody else who has the same problem, and then I think of taking on their suffering, then I can actually do that. My motivation is much more sincere than if everything is just kind of abstract, and I'm being this goody-goody bodhisattva. But because then my mind says, well, I'm going to be suffering anyway. So if I'm going to be suffering anyway, I might as well take on the misery of others who have this very same problem. Yeah. And then in an interesting way, it makes our own misery more bearable. Yeah, when we think that we're bearing it for the benefit of others.